Dear students and my teacher friends, Namaskar. I welcome you to the presentation lecture on Pelvic Girdle. Now the reason the spelling is pelvic. Of many a time we are pronouncing this as a pelvic girdle, but in reality we should pronounce this as a pelvis girdle. So now you can see it is actually the pelvis girdle. So once again I welcome you to this presentation lecture. Now starting with the first point of this presentation lecture. Now what this pelvis girdle is made up of. So this is the first point of our discussion. The pelvis girdle consists of two hip bones. For example, this one is one hip bone, and this one is the another hip bone. So in the structure of pelvis girdle there are two hip bone, and the other name of this two hip bone, the hip bones are also known as, and here it is not coxal, we should pronounce this as a coxal. So in pelvis girdle there are two coxal bone, and cox mean hip. Now these hip bones, they are also known as the pelvis bones or os coxa. So actually there are four names for the bones of the pelvis girdle: hip bone, also known as coxal bone or pelvis bone or os coxa bones. So for this hip bone there are three more alternative names are there. So this is regarding the first point, what does pelvis girdle are made up of. So they are made up of two hip bone. Now moving on, this is the second point of our discussion. Now this two hip bone they joint anteriorly, and the joint which is formed anteriorly, that joint is known as, now here also we are not pronouncing this as pubis symphysis, actually it is pubic symphysis. And here as you can see, this hip bone and this hip bone, so over here anteriorly they are joining, and where they join, this part, this portion is known as, this joint is known as pubic symphysis. And on the back side, on the posterior side, these two hip bone, they are forming the sacroiliac joint with the sacrum. For example, this is the hip bone, this one is also hip bone, and as you can see this one over here, this one is the sacrum. Okay, so this one is the sacrum. So this joint, I am zooming so that you can see properly. Now you read this name. Okay, so sacroiliac joint is the joint between this joint and this joint. So sacroiliac joint is the joint between sacrum and the two hip bones. And where this joint is present, so posteriorly on the back side of the pelvis girdle, this joint is present. So even though it is present on the back side. So why we are seeing this from anterior side? The reason is when you observe posteriorly, so here it is difficult to find that sacroiliac joint because the joint is covered by the ligament. So here also the sacroiliac joint is there, but we cannot see it because that joint is covered by this ligament. That's why. And again, this one, this is pubic symphysis. Okay. So this is regarding the second point of our discussion. Now moving on the third point of our discussion. Now the third point is regarding the bony pelvis. Now what is the meaning of this bony pelvis and what is the shape, how it looks? Okay, that is the question. So as you can see, the bony pelvis is made up of hip bone, pubic symphysis and sacrum. Once again, hip bones, pubic symphysis and sacrum joins together and forms the basin like structure. This one you know, this one is the hip bone, this one is the hip bone, okay, then the pubic symphysis, and this one is the sacrum. So all this structure, they are forming this basin like structure. So on your screen, the structure that you are observing right now, that structure is known as bony pelvis. So in the bony pelvis, hip bones are there, pubic symphysis is there, and sacrum is there. And the shape is the basin shape. Now we know in our homes we are using wash basin, okay, but wash basin is the thing that we are using in our daily life. So here when we say the basin is actually the shape, okay, it is not a thing. Basin is a shape. So this is the shape, basin shape, and this basin shape is the bony pelvis. The plural is pelvis or pelvises. Okay, so this is regarding the third point. Now in this figure, as you can read this, on left hand side, this one A, they are showing the structure of the bony pelvis in woman, and this B figure, they are showing the structure of the bony pelvis of men. Okay, so this is the bony pelvis of man and this one is the bony pelvis of woman. Okay, so this is regarding the third point, that the bony pelvis. Now moving on the fourth point of our discussion. Now what this bony pelvis is doing in our body? So the bony pelvis is providing a strong and stable support to our vertebral column. Okay, for example, as you can see, this is the radiograph of the bony pelvis. It is the x-ray of bony pelvis, and as you can see, this bony pelvis, this entire bony pelvis, this entire bony pelvis is supporting the vertebral column. So in the fourth point, we are remembering that the function of bony pelvis in our body is that it is supporting the vertebral column, and the pelican pelvis and the lower abdominal organs are present inside the bony pelvis. So let's say over here the reproductive organ of men or woman are present in the cavity of the bone pelvis. So that is the meaning of this fourth point. This is the theory point, and this one is the figure. This is also good figure. Now please go through all the names, try to remember all the names. All the names are important. Now moving on the fifth point of our discussion. Now the pelvis girdle also connects the bones of the lower limbs to the axial skeleton. For example, this is our lower limb, and this one is these are the femur, okay, thigh bone, and over here, as you can see, this femur is joining the pelvis girdle, and now we know that the pelvis girdle is supporting the vertebral column. So this way we can say that the bones of our lower limb, they are connected with the axial skeleton. So in between the axial skeleton, that is the vertebral column, and the femur, the pelvis girdle is present. So that is the meaning of this fifth point. Okay. So the pelvis girdle of the bony pelvis also connect the bones of the lower limbs to the axial skeleton, that is the vertebral column. That is the meaning of this fifth point. Now, many times when we study the pelvis girdle, we think that the hip bone is the single bone, but in reality, most of the anatomists, the scientists, biology scientists, those who are studying the anatomy, human anatomy, they believe that the hip bones are actually made up of 3 separate bones. Okay, so hip bone, when we look at the hip bone, it looks single, but in reality it is made up of 3 separate bones. So now we are going to study these 3 bones of the hip bones. Okay, so this is the 6th point. Now moving on the 7th point of our discussion. Now in the hip bone, this is not ilium, we should pronounce as ilium. These things are a bit difficult, but we should pronounce this way. We should try to pronounce this way, ilium. Ilium means flank. Now what is ilium? So in the hip bone there are 3 bones, and the ilium is the largest of these 3 hip bone. And in the ilium, superior ala is there. Ala means wing. So now we are studying the structure of the ilium, what the ilium is made up of. So you remember this superior, I am showing you this superior ala, and you follow this purple color arrows. Okay, for superior ala you follow the arrow and where the arrow is going. So this part this part. This is the superior ala of ileum, and inferior to superior ala body is present. So I am showing you the body. So this was the ala, this is the ala, and this part, okay, this part is the body of ileum. So we can say inferior to ala body of ileum is present. Okay, now what is body, what the body is doing? So body is one of the component of the acetabulum, and this acetabulum receives the head of the femur bone, that is the thigh bone. So I am showing you this. For example, over here, as you can see, acetabulum. So you follow this arrow. So this is the acetabulum. Okay, so I am zooming this. So this entire circular fossa, this entire round fossa is known as the acetabulum. And in the structure of acetabulum, in the formation of acetabulum, as you can see, some part of the body of ileum is also involved. So that is the meaning of this point. This is the point number 7. Okay, and I have explained this point, and now you try to understand with the help of figure. Okay, now moving on the 8th point of our discussion. Now this is regarding the, now once again, this is not ischium, we should pronounce it as ischium. Ischium means hip. Now first of all I am showing you the ischium. So this reddish brown color bone, this part is the ischium. Now what this ischium is made up of? So first of all, the ischium is the inferior and posterior portion of the hip bone. So now you can see it is present inferior to ileum, and posteriorly it is situated. So this was the first line for this point. Now what this ischium is made up of? So comprises a superior body. So let's find out where the body is present of ischium. So now you follow this arrow. Okay, where this arrow is going. Okay, so this arrow, this part, so body of ischium. So I am zooming. So this is the body of ischium. Okay, now some other structures are there, other bones are there in the ischium. And inferior ramus. So I am showing you the inferior ramus. This part, inferior ramus. Then now the ramus is the portion of the ischium, and it fuses with the pubis. Okay, so here, for example, in this figure, ramus of ischium, this one is the ramus of ischium, and this one is the pubis. So here you can see it is joining the pubis. Okay, so that is the meaning of this thing, where these two are joining. Okay, then this line in the ischium, prominent ischial spine is also present. So let's find out the ischial spine. You follow this arrow. Okay, so over here, this one is the ischial spine. Then lesser sciatic notch below the spine. So let's find out sciatic notch. So here, lesser sciatic notch is present in ischium, and rough thickened ischial tuberosity. So let's find out this tuberosity. So this part, ischial tuberosity. So with this we have completed this point. I am showing you this is the 8th point. This is the figure. Okay. Now moving on the 9th point of our discussion. Now this is very difficult. Generally we are pronouncing this as a pubis, but actually it is pubis. But for simplicity we will pronounce it pubis. Okay, but in reality it is pubis. It looks very awkward when we try to speak this pubis, and the plural is pubes. Okay, so plural is pubes. Now the pubis means pubic bone. Okay, and is the anterior and inferior part of the hip bone. So let's find out. Anterior and inferior. Okay, so it inferior to, it is present just below the ilium. So we can say inferior to ilium and anterior to hip bone. Anterior in hip bone. Now, which are the structures that are present? Superior ramus is present. So superior ramus is there. So body, which are the structures? Which are the structures in the pubis? So as you can see, the body is also present. This is the body. Okay, and this part, this is the known as the inferior ramus pubis. Okay, so which are the structures that making the pubis? So we can say superior ramus of pubis plus body of pubis plus inferior ramus of pubis. These three together, they are making the pubis. So that is the meaning of this point. Okay, this line. Now the anterior and superior border of body is the pubic crest. So this one. Okay, anterior superior border of the body is pubic crest. So this one, anterior superior border, that is pubic crest, and its lateral end is a projection called the pubic tubercle. So this one, on the lateral side of the pubic crest, pubic tubercle is present. So this one is the pubic tubercle. So now this one is the theory point, and this one is the figure. Okay, now moving on the 10th point of our discussion. Now this is regarding the pubic symphysis. Now what is pubic symphysis? First of all, in this figure, this part, this is pubic symphysis, and in this radiograph, this is pubic symphysis. Okay, so first line. So what is pubic symphysis? So it is actually the joint between the two pubes of the hip bone. So see, this none. So body of pubis, this one body of pubis. So two pubes where they are joining, they are forming pubic symphysis. So that is the meaning of this first line. And what this pubic symphysis is made up of? So it consists of disc of fibro cartilage. Now inferior to pubic symphysis, inferior to this joint, the inferior rami of the two pubic bone, they converge to form the pubic arch. So once again, which are the structures that are joining? Pubic rami of two pubic bone, they merge and they are forming the pubic arch. So over here I am showing you the pubic arch. You just follow this purple color arrow, and as you can see over here, this name. So this is the pubic arch. Now here we are comparing the pubic arch of the men and women. Okay, see, now before that we discussed this point. Now in the later stages of the pregnancy, let's say after the 7.5 or 8th month, that time the ovaries and the placenta, they produce the hormone relaxin. And we have discussed many a time this hormone relaxin, what this hormone relaxin is doing. So it is increasing the flexibility of pubic symphysis. So relaxin is actually relaxing this pubic symphysis. Now the reason is, during the 9-month pregnancy, we know the baby's body is completely developed and the mother is about to give the birth after 9-month pregnancy. So to ease the process of parturition, that is the childbirth, this pubic symphysis is become flexible. Okay, that is the meaning of this 10th point. So in this point we have learned about the pubic arc, what this pubic arc is made up of. Then we have learned about the pubic symphysis, how it is made. So it is the joint between the two pubes of the hip bone, and it is made up of fibrocartilage. Pubic symphysis is made up of fibrocartilage. So this is the 10th point of our discussion. Now moving on the 11th point of our discussion. Now this point number 11, is regarding the, now again this is not acetabulum, it is acetabulum, but it is difficult so I will pronounce acetabulum, but in reality it is acetabulum. Now what is the meaning of this acetabulum? It is vinegar cup. Okay, first I am showing you, see in this figure, acetabulum. So you follow this arrow, this one is the acetabulum. Now how this acetabulum is formed? So part of ilium, ischium and pubis fuse together and one depression or the fossa is formed. I have already shown you that fossa, okay, in the previous point. So the fossa, this one for example. So in other words, in simplicity we can say that the part of ischium, ilium and pubis joins together and they are forming deep fossa, and this deep fossa is known as the acetabulum. And what this acetabulum is doing, so this is the thigh bone, and the name of thigh bone is the femur, and this is this part, this one is the head of femur bone. So here we can see that the acetabulum is accepting the head of the femur bone, or in other words we can say the head of the femur bone is fitting into the acetabulum. So the joint which is formed over here between the acetabulum and the head of femur, that joint is known as hip joint or the coxal joint. So this one, so this joint, okay, so this joint is actually hip joint or the coxal joint. Okay, so this is, so point number 11 is something related to acetabulum and coxal or the hip joint. So now moving on the 12th point of our discussion. Now over here, before we discuss the 12th point, you can see clearly, for example, this is the pubic symphysis made up of fibrocartilage, acetabulum, okay. So this fossa and all parts of all three hip bones are involved in the formation of acetabulum, and this acetabulum is receiving the head of the femur bone. So this joint is the hip joint or the coxal joint. So this was the 11th point. Now moving on the 12th point of our discussion. Now in this, on the inferior side of the acetabulum, deep indentation, the acetabular notch is present. So I am showing you this acetabular notch. You follow this purple color arrow and see. This one is the acetabulum, and inferior to acetabulum, what is present? So inferior to acetabulum, this one, acetabular notch is present. Now what this notch is doing? So it is forming a foramina. Okay, foramina means a hole. Okay, so from this foramina, what is passing? Blood vessels are passing and the nerves are passing, and this acetabular notch is also serving as a point of attachment for the ligaments of the femur. So I am showing you in this figure. So this is the head. Okay, here somewhere the notch is present, but we cannot see the notch. The reason, the ligaments are attached to that acetabular notch. That's why we cannot see that notch, but we can imagine that with the notch these ligaments are attached, and on the other side this ligament, they are attached to the head of the femur bone. So this was the 12th point of our discussion. This point was regarding the acetabular notch. Okay, what is the role this notch is playing? Now moving on the 13th point of our discussion. Now before we discuss the 13th point, I would like to tell you something about the last point is something related with the width of pelvis. Okay, so basically in the last point we are going to compare the broadness or the width of female and male pelvis. But before that, you see this figure. Okay, now what is the title of this figure? See, the structure of the bony pelvis, this one, these are the bony pelvis. Okay, so this one is of woman, and this one is of men. Now the pubic arch. Okay, where is the pubic arch? So I am showing you pubic arch. This one is the pubic arch, and this one is the pubic arch of the men. Now the measurement of the pubic arch of women and men. Okay, so here as you can see, the angle formed by the pubic arch can be approximately angle between the thumb and index finger for the woman. So this is the thumb, this is the index finger. So distance or the angle between the thumb and the index finger in woman, so this angle is approximately 80 to 85 degree. So in short we can say the pubic arch of woman measures 80 to 85 degree, and in men the pubic arch measures, 1 minute, the measurement for the pubic arch in men is between the index finger and the middle finger. So I am showing you index finger, middle finger, and this angle. So this angle is approximately 50 to 60 degree. So this is the pubic arch of the men, and it is having the angle of 50 to 60 degree. So that is the meaning of this point. Okay, now moving on the last point of our discussion. Here we are comparing the female and male pelvis. So here there are so many things written, but you can go through this, you can read this point, but directly I will explain this point. Now see, here it is written that the female pelvis is more wider than the men's pelvis. Okay, somewhere it is written that the, see this line, the female's pelvis is wider and shallower than the male's. Let's see. For this I will show you. For example, if you observe, see radiographs of male and female pelvis. First they are showing. Now you just observe, and I don't have to explain anything. So this is the radiograph or the x-ray of the female pelvis, and this one is the radiograph of the male pelvis. So here you can see that in female the pelvis is the wider one, and in men the pelvis is the narrow one. Now why in female the pelvis is wider one? Now you know female has to bear the pregnancy of 9 months, and during this time the baby's body is going to develop, and all the body system and organs are going to develop. So during the pregnancy, to accommodate the baby's body, the pelvis of the female is wider. Okay, and in male that is not the case. Okay, so the man has never bear the pregnancy, so their pelvis is the narrow one. So that is the meaning of this 13th point, and few more figures I would like to show you. For example, if you observe, if you have time, you can go through this. These are very good figures. For example, here it is written on the right side, female pelvis, okay, anterior view. So you just compare this part, okay, and this part. So this one, this is the male pelvis and this is the female. So we can see that the female pelvis is the wider one, okay. So female, male, and this part, this figure, female pelvis, outlet, inferior view, okay. So we can see this is the wider one, or it is the broader one, and this is the narrower one, okay, in men. And last thing of this presentation lecture, so this is the table, okay, and this table is your homework, okay. I am not explaining anything from this table because I don't know in what depth you are preparing your biology subject, but if you are interested, you are welcome to prepare this table, okay. Now you don't have to mug up all the things, but at least you should have the idea, okay. So with this, I have completed the presentation lecture on pelvis girdle. I hope you have enjoyed this presentation lecture, and at the same time I hope this presentation lecture will be helpful for your exam preparation and in your studies. My name is Manish Koshti sir. I am from Ahmedabad, India. Bye bye. Namaste.